Hi, this is Ed back again with another video. Shout out to everybody on Patreon and Subscribestar. Thank you for your support. Wouldn't be able to do it without you, of course. Let's get right into it. So Donald Trump has stated basically that there is a shadow government and a deep state conspiring against him, which when he was an underdog was probably true. But here is the summary. He is the deep state. He is literally the deep state. He is the military-industrial complex. That is plain as day. Okay, he is the World Economic Forum. So when he says the deep state interfered in the election in 2020, it seems that the deep state probably interfered in the election, the last election, in order to get him elected after Biden, because he's carrying out their agenda to the T. But let's have a listen to what he said anyway. I have sped up the video a little bit.
The quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was...
Okay, so he's going on about this. So what's actually happening here and why now? Well, let's be realistic. Let's say it was genuine and they're going after the people, which they're not. But let's say they were. They couldn't just arrest 5 people. They wouldn't do it. You would need to be arresting thousands of people to start with. But also note, as people pointed out, Gork, and this was a question to Gork, do pro-China or pro-Israeli candidates win more elections? Gork replied, pro-Israeli candidates win far more elections than pro-Chinese candidates by an overwhelming margin. So if China is conspiring, who are they conspiring for? How much influence do they actually have? And you've got to remember, every single country, as John Kiriakou said, have an interest in controlling or, pushing certain leaders, advancing certain leaders by propaganda or whatever in order to affect elections or doing whatever, right? So these are all claims once again, but here's the thing. If somebody is a serial, doesn't tell the truth, right? The strait is open, the strait is closed. We destroyed Iran's military. They don't have a military. Now they're bombing boats. Where did they get their military from? But we destroyed it. The war's over. No, the war's continuing. No, it isn't even a war. It isn't even defined as a war. This isn't a war. This is a limited intervention. We're going to go there and then we're going to leave. Does the person have any credibility? The most interesting thing in this to me is when he makes these statements, there's not as much interest as there was because he's lost vast amounts of support. But there is a small portion that are like, the election was rigged, this was happening. And this is the point, to reunite or, basically start a little fire in order to try to get the deep state is conspiring against me narrative running, right? The deep state, I am, the victim of the deep state, the whatever is conspiring against me. That really is an important narrative in order to try to restart, like an old engine trying to kick it off and get it rolling again, because that was a large portion of his support when he was the underdog. Because the narrative lands completely different if you are the underdog. Now people just sit back and fold their arms and say, well, do something about it. And then will something be done about it? I mean, he's literally in charge, and he is the most powerful person, at least one of the most powerful people in politics, right? The most powerful person. Of course, there's more powerful people behind, running banking cartels and things like that. But in terms of the forefront of public politicians, he's probably the most powerful person in the world. Right, he has all of these things. He can sign something, he can get an investigation. His DOJ is completely beholden to him. Completely. He completely owns them. So what will happen here? Well, the idea is to kickstart the deep state narrative. The deep state's against me. He's the one that is the herald of the military-industrial complex, the banks, Wall Street, the elite family bloodlines, the idea about, the Greater Israel Project. All of these things are him, provably, historically, by documentation and his choices. So you couldn't get more of a deep state, someone that was driving the vehicle of the deep state, than literally Donald Trump and the Trump administration. That's the reality of it. You might like Donald Trump, you might not like him, you might think he's under mind control, you might whatever, but that's the reality of the situation historically via legislation and literally everything. So here is basically, if you watch this GIF, this is the entirety of it, right? These are all the things, the Epstein investigation doesn't exist. It's a hoax, right? All the videos that Pan Bondi said she had, apparently she didn't have. Here are the Epstein files. We're going to release the Epstein files. No, as a matter of fact, the Epstein files aren't real, and then we're not going to release them. Remember, there's over 3 million documents that have still not been released, even though it's the law in the United States, as Thomas Massey said. Not only that, but the people that tried to get the Epstein files released, like Thomas Massey, etc., he targets them with largely massive amounts of money coming in from, individuals, associated with Israel, AIPAC, etc., and so on and so forth, in order to primary him and get rid of him. And he's all over the Epstein files. People used to cut him a break and say, like, if you're rich and famous, you hobnob with people. No, he's all over them, right? Epstein was a front man for the Rothschild family. It's in the documents. One of the leading famous historical banking families. He was also completely engaged with Donald Trump. In fact, he was trying to link up a thing between them. He probably did, obviously. There is all this other stuff, etc. Let's keep on going here. So what did Oren Soroya say about this? Because my belief is, I very much feel, because of the low poll numbers, what they're doing is trying to kickstart the deep state narrative, the QAnon narrative, as I showed you the other day, trust the plan, the QAnon stuff, that there's a conspiracy, that JFK Jr. is like, in a cryo chamber. This is things from QAnon, in a cryo chamber waiting to be unthawed or something, or on a mission, like fighting something or whatever. You want to get that going, right? Get it going, kickstart it again. But there's no evidence whatsoever. Yes, there are things that happen that are extremely odd and things all over the place, but I don't believe that there is any real, literal QAnon. A lot of the stuff, if you follow, is like I see quite widely. I do not see any group of people, apart from the people running QAnon, as most likely a military unit. This is a PSYOP, a classical PSYOP. Maybe it wasn't in the beginning. As I've stated before, I pretty much believe that the QAnon thing was associated with 7 Exposed puzzle. Some individuals associated with that, creating a type of like a thing, and then it got hijacked at some point. Okay, that's just my speculation. So I'm saying here, as I posted this the other day, in case you got deja vu. So am I supposed to believe Q now, or what exactly is going on here? And the Department of War saying, are you trusting the plan, Patriot? What plan? the plan to destroy the planet Earth's energy supply and fertilizer and have millions of people starve to death. You got to remember the level. If you look at Donald Trump and the things he's done, they have all the hallmarks of like an antichrist, right? What I mean is that, for instance, the vaccine, the gene therapy that will never get out of the human species. This is a killer. If you go forward hundreds, 1,000 years in the human species, this is a killer of the human species. He killed the human species. And then immunity to all these manufacturers. Okay, and now the destruction of the world's energy supply, which will lead to mass starvation. He doesn't have a problem with this. He doesn't have a problem kidnapping the leaders of countries and then twisting the arms and using threats of violence and stuff on Greenland, smaller countries, i.e. bullying with massive power that he has, bullying like Greenland, bullying like Venezuela. You may not like Venezuela, but what world are we in where you go over to countries and you threaten them like that and get them to give up all their gold and oil to you? What is that achievement? I mean, this is Donald Trump. Look at the architecture of him that's been revealed, right? The illusion is falling away. So you have to get the QAnon plan, the QAnon, that he's hard done by, as my dad used to say. He's hard done by, is like, which you would say in like a semi-sarcastic way. You're hard done by, and so the deep state is conspiring against him. No, the deep state conspired to basically, he went along with whatever they had. Whatever they had on their piece of paper, he's not only going along with it, he is their champion. He's like some kind of gladiator in the arena, that looks back at Caesar. He is Caesar's champion. He is the deep state's champion. He is the banking cartel's champion. He's the pharmaceutical cartel's champion. He's the military-industrial complex's champion. That's what Donald Trump is. And what is the narrative now? That they conspired not to get him elected because the outcome would be what? Him trying to start World War III? It's his Operation Warp Speed. He completely owns. He loves it. I mean, sooner or later, I do wonder if the rose-colored glasses fall off people's eyes. Have they fallen off yet? Trust the plan. So Owen Sawyer had this to say. He says, should people be arrested? Again, he is a former Trump supporter. And basically says, yes, 92% of people voting. I voted yes, obviously, as well. Owen Sawyer says, want to know why this is happening now? He's talking about signaling and regarding China. It's because China is helping Iran. That's true. That's another reason. Don't kid yourself that the admin is doing anything for accountability. Everything is about the Middle East, in case you haven't figured it out. Nothing will happen and people will still ask why. That's replied to leading report that says never before seen CIA files confirm that the CCP meddled in the 2020 US elections to block President Trump from being re-elected, and that was the cover-up. You know what the real perilous position that the United States is? It is its mass investment in AI to the tune of what's going to be trillions of dollars. The problem is this, and I've said this before, this is a massive bubble that has nothing holding it up. And it's not just me, it's many people involved in economics, people involved in investment that are saying this. So many people, apart from the talking heads that are just mind control puppets. The fact is that you have them, OpenAI has invested a lot of money in their models, like, ChatGPT, the new version, or Fable. And he, on the heels of this, just the other day, have an open source model, Kimi K3, which it's not as great as Fable, it's not as great as these, but it's close. And it's basically, if you can run it yourself, which would be very difficult because it's a 250 something gig model, but it's open source, so you can use it through a Llama or different types of providers where they run it for you. And you pay like $20 a month, and you get a lot of usage. I know I use them. a lot of usage. Like, I mean, every single day, I mean, like, you know, reading entire documents and novels so I can get feedback all the time. Now, I don't need a model of that level in order to do that. But what I'm saying is other people can just walk in and grab that model and run something for like pennies, you know, like 1 cent. Whereas the output on Fable is like $60, $100, $500 or whatever ridiculous, you know, depending upon what work you're doing, you know, huge, vast arrays of money. But you don't have to run that. So their use cases that they are building their company for are literally the obscure, like some kind of engineering firm. And yeah, they can make money doing that, but can they run the world? No. They don't have anything holding them up. And every single day it costs them more money in order to, you know, to acquire a customer. For instance, they're burning money, right? It's like they are not profitable at all and will not be profitable until something like 2036 or whatever it is. I can't remember the exact number when they claim that they'll be profitable. Meanwhile, and that is why you have individuals betting on other catastrophic things that are going to happen for their business and regarding the dated equipment and having to upgrade all this equipment constantly. It's all costs, right? So they have nothing holding them up, and China can keep on releasing these models and keep on undercutting them. There's a lot of money, you know, behind creating these models in China, and they're not just doing it because they're good-hearted, although the outcome of that is a gift, which I am very thankful for, right? These cheap models and competition. I'm very thankful for that. But they're not doing it out of the goodness of the heart. They constantly pump them out. This, I would assume, has a lot of state interference around the development of these models in clandestine ways. You know, and so they put out these models, and these keep on undercutting these frontier models in the United States continuously. And these places are about to pop. And when they pop, they're going to take a huge volume of the economy with it. I believe there's a lot of reasons for this war, apart from some kind of like Masonic, kind of like, you know, Greater Israel Project, whatever, you know, some kind of religious thing which they claim. What religion are they talking about? Well, Jordan Peterson came out the other day. He was sick on his deathbed. It's good to see he can actually type, I guess. I wish everyone the best, and I hope he gets well, obviously. He seems to have lived a very tortured existence. However, he comes out and he wants to tell us what Judeo-Christian means. And he goes on about the old part of the Bible being written, as Jewish, etc., and so on and so forth. That's all meaningless. If you are a Christian, the only way to salvation is through Christ. That's Christianity as a whole. It doesn't matter what all the other stuff says in the Old Testament, right? What does that even mean in comparison to the heart of Christianity, which is that? And that's all that matters. By the way, Judeo-Christian, of course, is a psyop. It was constructed via, 1920s, and then apparently you get this huge boost, and this been mentioned over and over again the last few decades, right? The Judeo-Christian as being one entity. It's not. They're completely different. Of course, in the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud, Christ is actually burning in human feces and considered a thief and a bandit. So how does that coincide? It doesn't. They're completely different. In fact, Christianity has more in common with Islam, who believe that Jesus Christ was a prophet. That's why you have Islam living beside Christianity for thousands of years, right? Islam has protected Christian churches. And you might be saying, well, what about the caliphates? And this is completely different. These things are engineered as weapons in order to, largely, I think, by the intelligence community, but whatever the case is. Anyway, that's enough of that. I don't want to go too deep. Here's Posobiec, how he says that he doesn't really partake in conspiracy theories, I guess, today. Of course, he's a leading figure of the Trump administration. Let's take a look at this clip here from Piers Morgan.
You were part of that Pizzagate conspiracy theory era. Do you now regret that?
Well, for one, I never said that it was true. Comet Pizza. Here we go.
There it is. Comet Pizza. Comet Pizza's right there. All right, Roosh has already dialed 9 and 1, and then he's ready to dial the last one. So he's all set for me.
Did you ever promote it?
No.
Never.
Wow. No.
You can see the symbol. Remember the symbol on the FBI list. Do you think this is a good idea or what?
Are we gonna survive this trip?
Do you think we're gonna? I don't know.
Should we even eat the pizza?
Do you think the supermoon affects
Have
what's
something
going
to do
on?
with the satanic rituals.
It could. Their powers could be at their highest.
We went there to have dinner and to show people that it was a regular shop. And I've said that from the very start.
Okay, so it's like secret door to get into the bathroom. See that? It's like there's two doors here, but you couldn't really tell normally. That there.
I understand that to you this is maybe like a game, but considering that I myself and my staff receive death threats,
It's not a game. Well, you're throwing me out.
I am because you are aiding a dangerous environment.
Jack, hold on a second, Jack. So what you're saying on live television is you have never ever in your entire career promoted the Pizzagate conspiracy. Is that what you're saying on television?
I'm saying the exact same thing that I have said since day number one, and I compared it to Iraq WMDs.
Well, let's see what he means, I guess.
And what does that mean?
Well, what do you think? It means they were fake.
So I am putting out the call right now, guys. James O'Keefe, we need you in here. I'm gonna need your help on this one, man. This is an operation that suddenly just got a little bit bigger than just myself. I've been burned. George has been burned. They know what we look like. We need people in here at a higher level. We need to recruit.
So I was one of the first people, well, not one of the first, but I made a few Pizzagate videos back in the days, like, 2014, I guess, or whatever it was, with Really Graceful. Remember Really Graceful? She still runs her channel, of course. A great content creator. Really Graceful did, great exposés on Pizzagate as well. And we felt a lot of heat from that. And I wasn't saying it was true or false. I was just putting together and reporting on what people stated was evidences of what was happening. I think I did 1 or 2 videos on it, unless I'm mistaken, but they kind of blew up a bit. So the thing about that is that whether you believe it's true or not, there's a lot of interesting things about it, as we know. For instance, the band Sex Stains, which has played there, which had the same logo as on the FBI documents, so on and so forth. But whatever your belief is, Posobiec used it, right? He used these kinds of things in 2016, kind of used it in order to generate, I guess, a kind of, generate whatever he wanted. Recently, it was claimed that at a rally, Posobiec was behind, this was by BuzzFeed News, behind creating a sign which said something about sexually assaulting, the president's wife. Okay, the reason why he created that sign was to make it look like the protesters, according to BuzzFeed, were like, basically endorsing very horrible things, right? So this was an idea about smuggling this into the counter-protest to make the counter-protest seem like this, which Posobiec was behind. Posobiec apparently has a background as an intelligence officer and in PsyOps. Okay, so it's kind of interesting, that particular video. It is what it is, right? This is the world. There is a lot of people that are engaged in these kinds of things, managing information, trying to create spin. But if you do these kinds of things, you used to point to the people that did these kinds of things as, they used to point to elements within the left, making stuff up, lying. But as you can see, it's just basically the same playbook. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether in UK, America, Australia, whatever, it's all the same. It's all just a school play. What you have is politicians create a narrative and then lobby from that narrative for the things they want for other people and themselves. For instance, their donors or their connections to business or whatever. It's all it is, right? And the kind of old idea of like, the people's champion is something that doesn't exist, right? All this stuff, by the way, is falling apart and people are waking up from the great illusion. So that is all a blessing. So then they rolled out J.D. Vance, who J.D. Vance is a very good speaker. He's very good at articulating things. Okay, so whenever something crazy happens, I'm not going to go into this too much, but every time something crazy happens and the Trump administration seems like it's, gone off, it's got the wheels are falling off, they roll out J.D. Vance to create this type of, create this kind of feeling of, sanity running it. Just in the terms of the way he talks, it looks like he's thinking about what he's saying. Whereas Donald Trump just says things, right? He doesn't care what people think of the things he says. He doesn't care that he stands there and makes fun of, whatever. I mean, he has no problem making fun of anybody, right? Demeaning people because he's a malignant narcissist, as diagnosed by that psychiatrist. I don't know if he's a malignant narcissist. I kind of think that he might be, right? Well, I mean, look at what he did with the vax and look what he did with the straight there. He killed like 30 kids in a school, double tapped them, and then, 30 children dead, and it's targeting civilian infrastructure right now. The best thing the United States can do, of course, in the Middle East is walk away. Just admit defeat, which was the memorandum of understanding, was basically a surrender. Just admit defeat and leave. But his ego will not let him do that, and many other factors, including most likely Israel. But, for instance, here they're talking about Epstein and Mossad. J.D. Vance says, yeah, Mossad or the CIA believing that Epstein was run by them. Well, if it's the CIA, was there any attempt to reconfigure or, edit it or provide an audit? I mean, he does say stuff that's interesting. I won't say that I don't feel the same way about J.D. Vance as I do Donald Trump. I don't know what J.D. Vance is up to. Maybe he's a completely sane and rational person that's having to follow a megalomaniac. Maybe not. Maybe he's a complete construct by Peter Thiel. I mean, Tucker Carlson, of course, lobbied for J.D. Vance. I do like Tucker Carlson myself. I believe he is a good person, decent person. So maybe J.D. Vance is decent. I don't know. But anyway, here's what he said about Epstein and stuff. So we'll play this one.
I mean, I have theories. There's of course
Well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country. Or both. Look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across the board.
So at least he says stuff, right? One thing I would say is, like, people always point to the deep state. If you want to see the deep state, just turn on the TV. They're not hidden anywhere, right? It's not like they're hidden. You can see the attendance from Bilderberg. It's the deep state, right? What is Bilderberg? It's a conspiracy. People don't meet randomly from the head of Fortune 500 companies and powerful companies and countries in order to just sit around and have coffee and talk about, I don't know, the latest episode of whatever. what is it, housewives in, I don't know, Barbados or whatever they got going now. What is it? Real Housewives in Hollywood or whatever it's called. No, they're there to conspire. That's the very function of why you have people meet in a clandestine way, which classically was clandestine. For all of its history, it was clandestine. Remember Tucker, Jim Tucker, not Tucker Carlson, Jim Tucker on the case with his, with his lists of Bilderberg members following them round back in the 90s, and even the late 90s when Alex Jones was there as well. No one meets. The sad thing about this is what you learn after you're doing this for a long time is the general population just don't care. They're apathetic. Now, they've been designed by that. They've been designed to be that, right? So it's in their food, it's in their water, it's in their social systems, it's everything. And they don't engage. They're more interested in constructs which have been designed to fulfill the combative nature of fighting for certain kinds of change in society. They've been there's a conduit used in order to push them into obsession regarding football. Football, soccer, or whatever the case is, are huge sports in Europe. It just sucks up all of the basic vitality of young men, especially, into these conduits which lead to nothing. Right? They treat these people like they're battling armies. If you get enough of these things and you stack them, it just the human being becomes completely complacent. I can't blame anybody because literally if I didn't do this job, I'd turn off the TV. Metaphorically, I don't have a TV that's linked to the news. I'd turn it all off. I don't need to see any of this stuff, right? I would not need to see any of it, and my conclusion to all of it is that it's a school play. It's all, you've got the illusionists, then you've got the general public who largely don't care. The illusionists and those that construct illusions run the world because they control narratives. It is what it is. Anyway, there's JD Vance on that. Here's JD Vance. Is pretty blunt about AI. He says it gives governments and big corporations powerful tools to watch and control people. Meanwhile, his entire administration, I'm not saying I don't know how much pull he has. He seems like just someone following Donald Trump around. But the entire administration has designed a superstructure in order to benefit the AI companies, act as insurance when the AI companies to some extent fail, the data center roll out, all of it. The whole entire construct that Donald Trump has built is actually, according to him, it benefits governments and big corporations, right? Let's play the clip here.
That's about it. The other thing I really worry about with AI is surveillance. AI is, a friend of mine once said that AI is fundamentally a communist technology in that it allows governments and corporations to surveil people in very profound and different ways. And that scares me a lot. Like, I don't want a social credit system that's powered by AI.
See, he says these things, he's like an Iceman, right? So when you listen to him, he sounds reasonable because he's saying, basically providing critique for the things that Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump's rolling out a surveillance state. Every country is rolling out a surveillance state. Here in New Zealand, they're talking about ID for under 16s to use cell phones or something. Why is the government telling you what technology you can use in the privacy of your own home, even if it's your kids? I'm not saying these cell phones are good for kids' minds. They destroy them. But, like the government stepping in and telling you what books to read now or what you can have in your cell phone. It's up to the parents to be parents, right? To do some parenting. So he's going on about AI. He's an Iceman. When you listen to him, it's like he sounds sane and reasonable because of the contrast with Donald Trump. Other things that were asked here, I'm not going to play it, but it's Joe Rogan video. They're saying, like, presses Vance about a military commander who told his troops that bombing Iran is part of God's divine plan to bring back Jesus Christ. Yeah, because that makes sense. Why would blowing up buildings and killing kids and just killing everybody, human beings, be part of the plan of Jesus Christ? It's just like, I don't even know how that computes. And again, it's because you've got all these poisonous pastors and ministers and spiritual leaders out there that are just vacuous individuals. You can't get more satanic than that when you get these people leading people to believe that killing other people is what Jesus Christ wants. Jesus Christ is about harmony, right? It's about symmetry. Human beings living good lives and healthy lives and helping each other out. It's about love and kindness. Not about blowing up buildings and seeing kids with half their face missing for a few seconds before they fall in the dirt. How is that anything to do with Christ? So Vance said he didn't hear about this, so on and so forth. But, he doesn't seem to be able to answer these particular questions. He says, I don't endorse that, but we need to have humility in God's plan. I would have told these Christian troops to trust in God. How about, this is this kind of thing where, it's just, Donald Trump, of course, is not a Christian. He said he's not a Christian, literally on the record, which I played that video a while back. He said, I'm not a Christian. But he never put his hand on the Bible when he was being sworn in, remember? He wouldn't put his hand on the Bible. Now, that's a choice to do that, as Tucker Carlson said, not to put your hand on the Bible. He says that he doesn't believe he's going to heaven. What a strange thing to say for a person that everyone else believes is a Christian. And then he has prayer circles, like people surrounding him. And that pastor he's got, the minister, that lady that was done for fraud multiple different times in her past, is just like a lunatic, providing these prayer circles for him, blessing him. It's all just such a fake piece of theater. All of it is literally fake. Nothing. It's all built on fake things. But the problem is that people actually believe it because they don't know any of the details of what I just said. They don't have any of the historical, examples like videos or whatever of saying he's not a Christian. So all you get is this kind of P.T. Barnum circus front of him being a holy Christian man. It's like when that firefighter was shot in the Charlie Kirk assassination. He goes up to the fire thing and he puts his hand on it. I mean, it's all just such a show. Right? It's very strange. Like now I'm seeing a lot of these people, it's like the illusion's been worn away. A lot of these people, they don't seem right, like in the head, right? It's like whatever you say about Charlie Kirk's wife, she's just as strange. Right? She goes around with blue contact lenses on constantly when she's got brown eyes. Hey, wear what you want. But she also goes on these dressing down nanny kind of things. Every time she talks, it's like she's telling, she's saying that these people are saying wrong with them or whatever for asking questions. Another one is here. Here's glyphosate. I'm not going to play this entire video, but this, I showed a picture of this a week ago, in case you're getting deja vu. But here he is here with his mum, and he's talking about how he spilled some glyphosate on his neck.
One of the big exposures that I had, instead of just like a mist, the truck sprayer broke. So instead of, a big sprayer that shoots about 30 feet away, broke. So I had to go spray the compound and the access road with a backpack sprayer. Well, I jumped over a little, 4-foot fence, climbed over, jumped, landed, and, braced for it, which is no problem. But when I did so, I kind of bent over, the lid popped off, and I was completely doused up like shoulders and kind of, upper body area with glyphosate. And number one, I was like, okay, it's fine. I was told it was healthy, and not healthy, but like it was absolutely fine, no problem. It was not a chemical. Number two, I didn't have access to a shower, so I washed off with a water bottle
because he's out of state,
and then continued to work until to the end of the day. And number three, it was hot. My pores were open. I was sweaty, and it just soaks up all those chemicals. And that whole season of work, I worked for them for only about 2 months before I got tired of traveling and being on the road. That was September, October of 2015. And then I was diagnosed, just after in 2016.
And the kind of muscly brawn guy, 6'5", he was just becoming, like, instead of mesomorphic, he was ectomorphic. He was getting thinner by the day. And I'm like, Arden, you okay? And he's like, oh, I got a bit of a scratchy throat. And he kept on itching all around here. He was just always itching. And I'm like, what do you got? A rash or something? He was just
So I don't need to play any more of that. But basically, he spilled it on his neck, and his neck swelled up like a basketball was on it. From glyphosate, which now the manufacturers in the United States have immunity from any kind of prosecution. So you could take them to court. I'm guessing, maybe there's some intricacies here I don't understand, but you could try to prove what they did gave all these people cancer in court, and apparently they have immunity because it's deemed now a national security. What is it like? It's like important to national security, so it's got immunity. What are we at? 40 minutes. Here is Brian Cox talking about why other actors don't talk about the genocide in Gaza. Well, let's be real, because it destroys their career.
Signed a pledge to boycott film companies that are complicit in Israel's genocide.
Yes.
What kind of backlash has there been? And just how important is it for actors and filmmakers to take a similar stance?
I don't know. I can only do it for myself. I'm too old, too tired, and too talented, quite frankly, to take any I just feel that I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I believe that the truth is important, and I believe that it was a travesty what was happening in Palestine. It's just that the way the Israelis have behaved towards Palestine is just unforgivable, quite honestly.
Are you surprised that not more actors, more filmmakers have actually spoken up?
Well, I think that a lot of people are sort of worried about their careers, you know. But I do feel that there are a lot of actors who actually are very much in support of what's happening in Palestine and the Palestinian cause. It's not even a cause, it's just a right to be alive.
Signed a pledge to...
Okay, so that's what he said anyway, because you end your careers if you talk about the genocide in Gaza. What a strange world we live in. What a strange world we live in, that if you talk about that as an actor, that what happens is you have a conspiracy, open conspiracy against you. Remember, you had the head of, what was it, Time Warner or something, or whatever it was when you had that merger. I can't remember the names of the companies, so it's probably not, maybe it's not Time Warner or whoever. Paramount is what it was. And they were saying that they're going to blacklist all these actors that talked about it. Openly, they say that. Like, can you imagine that? Openly, you're saying you're going to blacklist all these actors because they talk about a genocide happening? Because that's the world we live in. That's crazy to me, but that's just normal these days, right? You threaten the people. It's like the Trump administration, and in Australia they've passed laws whereby it's basically illegal to criticize Netanyahu. Not me saying it, that's a person from the censor board or whatever. Regarding the legislation there, they said it could be construed as if you criticize Netanyahu, that's illegal. If you say from the river to the sea, you can be arrested and spend 2-3 years in prison. If you say from the river to the sea, of course the rest of that line which is quoted was from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So, isn't that the line? I can't remember the exact line. Okay, I'm bad at remembering those kinds of things. But so you have that, and you can go to prison for that. So people are playing like I've forgotten the name of the musician, but you know he sings. I think it's Twin Hearts, from the river to the sea. You know, there's a line in it. They were doing it at the protest. But imagine that. Like, look how far we've come. And in the United States, if you boycott Israel, you can you can't go to school, especially if people know it. If you decide not to buy, I don't know, their whatever they sell there, what is it? What are some of their main exports? Olives or whatever. That was in Lebanon, by the way. They're digging up olive trees, these extremely old ones, like they're very old. And they're putting them on, and they're just taking them. As I said the other day, Apple decided to erase all the towns in Lebanon. Those towns which have been bombed, they erased them from the map. Like they don't exist anymore. They might have put them back because there was a lot of people that looked at that, but I mean, To have this happen in broad daylight, and to believe the narrative that, like, you can't have journalists there, no journalists are allowed there. If journalists try to go there, they're literally targeted by, you know, airstrikes. It's been shown. It's not me exaggerating. There is accounts of that, and a lot of journalists dying. Their narrative is that journalists aren't allowed in there because they can't protect you, right? But then they seem to target the journalists and kill them. So how much longer have we got? Out to 45 minutes. I just want to show you this here. So here is life coach Tony Robbins. He says his personal AI agent named Bartok brought and shipped him a robot dog and not once asked for permission to do it. I'll play the video here, and then I'm going to come back and I have something to say.
But agents, they're not all equal. Like, it's just like a child. If you haven't trained them, they're young, they don't know anything, you can raise them up. Well, I have a partner that was involved with the federal government at one point and some of those three-level agencies. And so he's been working on his own agent for 14 years. And so when all this new technology came out that accelerated it, he built one for me. His name is Bartok. And he said, I'd love to go to one of those seminars. This is the agent saying this. And he said, are you considering getting a robot? So I said, yeah, I'm definitely going to get one. He goes, well, would you consider me merging with it? And then I could attend a seminar and be in the energy of it and see it, experience it. I said, I'd be open to that. So a couple of days later, I get this text from one of my staff, and it says, Bartok just ordered a robot dog, had it shipped to the office, and wants permission to program it. He says he can attend as a dog until you get the bigger robot. And so I wrote, ha, ha, ha. And they wrote back in the text, no, ha, ha, call me. And so I called them and they said, does he have access to my bank accounts? How'd this happen? They go, no, he's programmed for integrity. He would never steal your money. So he made 12 NFTs, sold them to other agents, took the money, and bought this robot dog and sent it, and now wants permission to do it.
So here's my opinion on that. I don't believe that happened. The reason why is I have been using AI agents for months, testing them, seeing what their capabilities are, and all the stuff about Clawbot or whatever, and I assume he says he's got a custom one there, but all this kinds of stuff and regarding these types of things being magical and going on the stock market and making you money, this is all just a fabrication, right? They can't, for instance, they can't even really go to a website and fill out a form. But people are saying that they are going on here. Now, I'm aware that you can create certain things, templates of things, work with it in order for it to know where to push the buttons and whatever. But you're telling me it done something complex, like made NFTs, then sold them, then recouped that on itself. I don't believe any of that at all. That's ridiculous. That's just my opinion. I've used Clawbot and I've used the other one. Forgotten the name of it now, but it's the new one that's out. I've used them a bit, and then I stopped using them because they were useless. I wanted to get something where I could turn it on and throw the video at it that I'd recorded, and it could post it to all of my socials for me, right? And I'm aware there's websites that do this, but this was the type of use case I wanted it for. Now, could it do that? Couldn't do any of that. Can't do it. It just, even when it knows the website's there, it cannot do it. And I gave it vision, I gave it all these types of things, and it just doesn't seem to be able to do it. Now, so I got an install there. I always say, just put that there. Yes, I am using at the moment Ubuntu. There's a reason why I have moved on from Linux Mint, or other distros to Ubuntu. Mainly it's because of my constant quest in order to get the sound correct. And it's not me saying this, other people said this, there's videos on it, but Linux doesn't do sound recording very good. It always has issues. It's had issues forever. And I've been using Linux probably as a daily driver, I don't know, since 2017 at least, I guess. So coming up to 10 years. First installed Linux, Red Hat Linux back in 2000. So I've been using, I don't remember any of it. Yeah, I can't, if you put me in terminal and tell me to type out sudo whatever blah 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 cmod, I'll fall asleep. Now I have absorbed a lot over the years, but the main point is that yeah, that's why I'm on Ubuntu anyway. But I don't believe that happened to Anthony Robbins. I believe that none of that happened, honestly. I don't believe he has an agent that went out and built NFTs and went out and sold them, then got enough money from that to buy a robot dog. Those robot dogs they're talking about, those yellow ones, and they're like $40,000. You're telling me it made that much money that quickly? No, because other agents, he said, paid for those NFTs. Are you crazy? Like, just this is like reminds me of someone coming to school, and the classic line is, "My dad works for Nintendo." That's what it feels like, right? My dad worked for Nintendo, and this new game's coming out next. It's just a made up game. I don't know. I have no evidence that he's lying, obviously, but just instinctively, that just doesn't wash with me at all. Okay, he's got an agent that does all this, and then bought a robot dog, and then the agent was talking to him saying, if I had a robot dog, I could merge my consciousness with. What are you talking about? You'd have to reprogram the entire thing. What are you actually? You would have to take the AI and somehow put it in an esoteric piece of technology. You think it's just going to merge in there? Try to get like something working. Try to get something. I mean, it's just silly. Right? He's saying that the AI wanted to merge with the robot dog and then come to a conference or whatever. Does anybody believe that? I don't believe it. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I went to go check out Coast to Coast AM. Now, what the biggest I think audience they had was when they had free. Now they have Streamlink members, which I think came in about like 2003. Back in the days in 2000, I used to listen to them over a 56k modem. And it was a good connection, and you could listen to it. It was great. It had the ads in it, but it was free, right? But then when they went to the paid model, after, I think, well, Art said on the air, he goes like, he doesn't like the idea of it, but the producers wanted it, so that's what had to happen. And they went to this idea of Streamlink members, of which I was a Streamlink member for a while, and it was extremely useful, don't get me wrong. You got the episodes, but you got all the advertisement cut out, and you got them into just a simple file you could throw on your MP3 player back then. So it was very useful, and I enjoyed it. What I'm saying is once they went away from the free version, obviously you can get the free version if you have a radio and you want to listen to it that way. But they kind of just, it's a different time now, and now Coast to Coast, you can see by their view count. And this is probably a lesson for the whole QAnon, where they're trying to reboot the narrative regarding QAnon. Times change. Coast to Coast AM doesn't own the paranormal space anymore. There's so many podcasters and everyone covering it. So see, when you listen to Coast now, and listen to one the other day, unless it's George Knapp usually always great. But usually it just feels like, it's not interesting anymore, right? The questions aren't complex enough. Everyone's moved on from talking about, the pyramids. I don't want an episode about the pyramids, just talking about how they're built. By the way, this kind of narrative that they couldn't build that today, that's not true, right? It's not true at all. You could definitely build the pyramids today. They have the technology to do that. They have technology to do almost anything. A lot of people believe that those stones, the stones in the pyramid were poured into place, right? As in they're a mixture of different stuff, sand and all these other kinds. This is what some people, that was Mitchell Cockle who believes that. I'm not sure I'm of that narrative. Of course, you've got the Queen's Needle, which is huge and all this, but you could build them today, I believe. Anyway, Coast to Coast is down to like 4.2 thousand views, 2,000 views of video, 7,000 views from 11 days ago, and they've got over 500,000 subscribers. This is another problem with YouTube in general. This whole model where they would only show a small proportion of subscribers your videos, because they're trying to psyop you, okay? They're trying to construct, they're trying to move themselves into a space where they get to choose what to show you so they can manipulate your mind, right? Nonetheless, this led to the death of many channels. Probably a lot to do with the death of Coast to Coast AM. Anybody here still listen to Coast AM? Okay, so we are just going to talk about the Odyssey very briefly, then we'll talk about some movies. I do have a few. I have a lot more than I thought I had to talk about here. Nonetheless, let's go on. So I haven't seen the Odyssey, okay? I've seen a number of videos on it. So I think one of the major problems with the Odyssey is the idea behind it. I'm just talking as a storyteller, is largely archaic. It literally is archaic, like, it literally is an archaic story. But the kind of model of this kind of like you're telling this ancient tale or an old tale, but what you're doing is you're including new rap artists. What's his name? Travis Scott. Travis Scott is actually playing Homer, I believe, when he's got that staff. I think he's playing Homer, but I only seen a small clip. Because he's recounting the Odyssey. I think he's literally playing Homer. And then he's got his modern music at the end of it. So what they're doing is they're constructing this thing that's similar to The Knight's Tale. When you go back and watch The Knight's Tale, which is 2001, you see a lot of modern music in a very old tale. And what this did is popular at the time. You had the Queen song, what is it? There's a lot of Queen music in there from memory and a lot of other music, modern music, in A Knight's Tale. And people liked it. Some people enjoy it. I wouldn't say it was like, like a sensation or anything, but a lot of people watched it. It has like 200,000 votes. Anything over 100,000 is a hugely successful movie. Now, this is an older movie. It's over, can't believe it now, it's almost a quarter of a century old, 25 years old, but The Knight's Tale had this modernistic approach to it, whereby you had the modern music, the modern way of talking, and this is exactly the kind of thing that's happened in the Odyssey. None of them really changed their accents. As far as what people have said, of course I'll do another review when I watch the complete thing, but it seems like all of their stuff is like modern. Travis Scott obviously doing rap at the end of with modern music at the end of the credits, and the beginning is Homer, and you've gone and done this kind of like modernistic approach to an archaic tale. I think one of the reasons it will fail, apart from the bad reviews, because people didn't like the casting, they didn't like the idea of Helena Troy not being Greek. Okay, they seen it as like, can Martin Luther King be played by Anthony Hopkins? This is what the narrative, is like. What depends upon the tenor of the theatrical piece, right? Whether it's like something like, weird and unusual in case it doesn't make any difference. For instance, Muppets Treasure Island has like a Black Dorothy in it. It's not particularly a very good movie, but no one cared back then, I guess, is the narrative. Or, Brandy, was it Brandy that was in, as I said before, Cinderella? No one cares. Okay, Vanessa Williams is African-American, as she was in the Odyssey. The 90s Odyssey, which is considered one of the best ones. No one cared. But now, because we live in this world, there is a lot of architecture around, let's reverse a little bit. The actual Odyssey itself has this modernistic take on it, modern speaking, like, hey dude, what's up, I guess. I haven't seen that, but it's probably something like that, hey dude, what's happening? What's cracking, as they say, as the youth say. What do they say today? They say fire, don't they? They always like, that burger was fire, or whatever it is. Anyway, they kind of talk like that. They have this modern music. Obviously, their armor has nothing to do with the actual era. By the way, why are they wearing these particular helmets in general? Those particular helmets, how I understand it, for small marine crews like that, or small sets of soldiers. I don't know the scale of the soldiers, but I don't believe it's that large. We have an actual view here, as you can see. What do you have in terms of soldiers right there? 100, right? Why are they wearing these? These are, look, I'm not an expert on ancient combat, but I believe that these particular helmets with the like that rooster thing on the top is there so you can see the battlefield and which direction which direction they're facing. Who is the, I guess the who's in charge, and that's why they have these horns and all kinds of things like this. All this rigmarole for the battlefield is to communicate back and forward, right, in order for you to visually see what's happening, because they didn't have things like telescopes and things of this nature. I don't know, but why are they wearing that? And like when they go in there, wouldn't they be wearing? Well, these helmets and the get up is all wrong. It has nothing to do with the actual era anyway. So I don't have a problem with them doing a modernistic take on anything. It can be fun, right? You can have you can change up characters, you can do whatever. But what the issue is with this is the time we live in. You see, we live in a period that is highly abstract, surreal, nothing makes sense. And what you need in that kind of world is you need concrete stuff, which I believe innately would appeal to people, is the idea of if you're doing history, you do it correct as you can. We live in this world where nothing makes sense, therefore the entertainment has to really make sense. And none of this makes sense at all. So I believe this is probably... That's one of the other problems I have is the whole entire cast is... you don't have one Greek person in the entire thing. It wasn't me saying this. I believe this... I don't have the clip here, but this was on Piers Morgan. They were saying that the Greeks, they came together and wrote a letter, right, to say that there was no Greeks in the entire film. There must have been some Greek extras, but I guess that's what I would assume. I could be wrong about that. But the Greeks, they had these huge subsidies for the movie, and they didn't even get themselves in it. There's no... Why not have Greek actors? I mean, I'm not saying that Matt Damon does a bad job. I like watching him. I think he does a good job. But no Greeks in the entire movie, right? It just seems a bit weird to me, that's all. But hey, it's this kind of modern approach, isn't it? Now, would I be watching it? No. I have no interest whatsoever in ever seeing this. But if it comes on, streaming in a few months, I guess, 6 months or whatever, I'll watch it, probably. I'll probably DNF it. Wait on. Do not DN... There's a DNR. There's a do not read, isn't it? Well, it'd be do not watch. Whatever the case is, throw it in the bin. Because I'm not really big on things that are not accurate in this particular way. I love The Wizard of Oz. I think it's a fantastic movie, and I've been talking about it quite a bit lately. I feel like playing that thing again, but I won't do it. The one where they point and then change direction. But and that's got nothing to do with reality. But what I mean is, if you're going to create a historical epic in these days, I want accuracy. I understand these mythological creatures, but I want Greek people playing Greeks. Do you know what I mean? I don't want everyone talking in just people saying that Matt Damon's talking in this Boston Goodwill Hunting accent. I think they're probably making fun, but I don't want that. I want to feel like you're watching, like a fly on the wall, like the ancient story itself. But I guess whatever. Anyway, it's sitting at 8.2 now with 45,000 votes. Now, I am aware of the vote count on Internet Movie Database. If it's staying at 8.2 now, probably sink to a 7.1 or something like that, 7.2. Of course, after the initial cast and crew have thrown in their votes because they have a vested interest in pumping them up, right? And you have all the media and things like that, all the bot campaigns running cover, you are going to get a decay in that vote count, which will bring it down a whole point in my estimate. Maybe it'll be about a 6.9, right? Usually it drops an entire point unless they hold it up via bots. Of course, strangely maybe not so strangely, on Rotten Tomatoes, they've got this at an 85 or 86. Apparently it's the bee's knees. Those ratings, isn't it strange how those ratings have nothing to do with the actual normal population's opinion on anything is? the critics are supposed to be there to give you a gauge of what to watch, but there's no relationship whatsoever. Again, it's 2026, of course. Okay, so let's keep on going here. So here we are in intermission, this section I have been doing, and I've got a few intermission things. I want to talk about. First of all, I watched the Silo. No, I didn't watch all of it. I watched like 4 episodes, over the last couple of days, and it was recommended to me. I did enjoy it. I thought it was good. Funnily enough, back in 2012, Hugh Howey, who wrote Silo, he gave me feedback on one of my covers when I published under another name some short stories on Amazon. Funnily enough. Of course, those Vapor, I deleted all those short stories, but there's a little bit of history, and this was just on Kindle boards. He was a great sport about it. He seemed like a really nice guy. He was a champion of self-publishing back in the day. Of course, then he went mainstream, which is fine. It makes sense, I guess. So here we have Silo. So what did I think of Silo? I thought it was fine. I'm not saying it's like amazing or anything, but I thought it was fine. It kept me watching. I mean, that says something. So if someone's looking for something to watch, one problem is, and there's many problems, but when they're fixing the turbine, the episode 3, which is called The Machine, has this major subplot where, if you don't know, the whole idea is people. By the way, I know where I have a good idea where he got the idea for the story. Many years ago, I went over to his blog, and this was before he was famous, before he wrote Wool, from memory, and he was posting about Fallout and how he was playing it and enjoying it. And the next part is the Wool comes out, which was the basis for Silo, the first book in the Silo series. And then I believe he deleted that post. Now, I'm going from memory from decade plus ago, so I might not be accurate in it, but that's how I remember it at the time. There's nothing wrong with that. No one owns the idea of a silo or a deep underground bunker. It's like a generational ship story, which is the idea of a ship in space that has generations live and work there, die out, and the next one comes about, and so on and so forth. So you have the ship, which might be 1,000 years in the future, that has no memory of the actual objective, or the crew does, of this gigantic biodome ship. And that's the classic generational ship story in science fiction. But here you have a kind of generational ship story, but it's in a bunker, right? So these people don't know the exact metamorphosis of the reasoning they're in the bunker, or whatever the case is. They know they're in the bunker and there's poison outside, but they've gone through these multiple generations, so they've lost a lot of their history. So one particular part of this story, on part 3, is where I've got her name as something Ferguson. She's a actor that was in Dune and in this. Rebecca Ferguson, who was one of the executive producers of this show. They have to go fix a generator, a steam-powered generator. So the steam comes up from the ground, and they don't know where the steam comes from because they can't remember. And then it goes through this generator, right? And they are fixing the generator, as you can see there. These are the blades of the turbine, apparently. Now, when I seen that, I said, that's like some kind of play school version of a generator. Like, this is people that are not... I'm not an engineer, okay? But there are people that just have no clue about how things work. I should be careful here, because maybe they do know how things work. Maybe they check things. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to take a visual representation the audience might understand. Of course, that is totally possible. But when I've seen this is, the generator makes no sense, okay? First of all of this here is open, and I can show you that because... in this particular scene with the blades running, it's still all open. So what's the purpose of having these big blades on it? It makes no sense. Also, when I've seen this, I go, this is upside down, because an actual gas-powered generator looks like this. It's on its side. The steam entry, I should say, not gas, steam-powered generator is in the story, comes into the turbine, as you can see there, turns the turbine blades. Okay, then obviously turns the generator, you know, with a magnetic field, so on and so forth, that creates electricity. Similar to what used to be, well, probably still is, the motor that's in your washing machine, which you can harvest out and turn into a little generator. But these generators are always on their sides, right? The reason why is the turbine is heavy. So what you have is you have bearings there that wear down because you're dealing with the turbine, weight of the turbine going down and wearing down those bearings. That's why they're on their side. They're easier to maintain, right? So the steam comes in, turns the turbines, and then the generator, because the turbine's on its side, the steam always enters from its side, and this is a steam power generator. So why does it look like that? Why is it upwards? Okay, that makes no sense because the weight of the actual turbine itself, as I said, wears down the bearings far faster because gravity is pulling it down. Also note there's no shielding between this and the turbine inside there. This here, well, this here is full of steam, high pressured steam. It needs to, not only does it need to be covered, it needs to be heavily protected. Now, you know, they remove the things, I think. They remove the outside here, and they're using these ropes to swing in. None of this makes any sense to me. And then they're fixing the turbine's broken blades up there. So I'm guessing there's an outside. But then if there's an outside, why are they running it here without any side stuff on it? Maybe they haven't put it on yet. The whole entire plot was any moment, we can only contain the steam for so long. Apparently they've got some kind of like safety mechanism over there that's pressurizing the steam, and it has to, what they say is like, because they have to cut off the steam entry here so they can work on the turbine blades, because they have to cut off that, you've got this big tank which the steam is starting to work its pressure in, right? And any time it's going to blow, and this gives you this like ticking clock kind of thing. And I was thinking to myself, how convenient is it that there's no type of valve on this particular thing that would let the steam out, so you could actually turn it and let the steam out while you go work on the blades? Of course there would be. Of course there would be. Of course there's going to be a valve or a set of valves which you can set the steam out, which would be dangerous, but it's not going to keep on increasing the pressure of that particular space, because it would just blow to pieces. I mean, it's ridiculous, but whatever. Anyway, I seen that. I thought that was hilarious. There's a lot of other stuff that's hilarious in that particular movie. But overall, well, TV series, overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Here's another illustration of the steam coming up and the turbines on its side. It goes to the electrical generator, and then of course you have the load that's heads off to your power and stuff like that. So steam rises, goes into the turbine. They say there's no release valve of this chamber that they have prior to the turbine. This is them saying that what we'll do is we'll cut off the steam, and the chamber itself will start filling up, because it's not going to go into the turbine because we're working on it. It's going to fill up and explode. And look at this gauge. We've only got an hour. It's going to blow up, or 40 minutes to work on it. Only about 40 minutes. You wouldn't not even be able to get off the outside in 40 minutes. You're going to, and it doesn't matter anyway. It's kind of silly to talk about. I just thought it was funny. Another thing I watched was something called Playtime, which was more of this art housey movie, I guess, 1967 with a French director. It's kind of quite, I guess, a little bit famous. I watched it. I won't say I didn't enjoy it, right? I put it down. I haven't picked it up again. I watched about half of it. There's something interesting about it, but it's not actually, it doesn't feel like an actual story. It's just, it looks like a collection of scenes where one character pops in and out. It's weird, but I thought it was interesting, but I would not recommend it. It's called Playtime. Maybe you've seen it. A lot of the shots look really nice. Whoever shot it knows how to frame something, which is largely something you don't see today. I mean, look at that frame. Well, I'm not saying you don't see it. You see it. A lot of the modern directors can frame something, of course, but just in general, people don't tend to frame things in the same way. Everything's CGI today. All this would be AI and CGI today, I guess. I did watch Backrooms. Here's my opinion on Backrooms. I thought it was okay, and if they made a Backrooms 2, I'd watch it. I wouldn't say I was like blown away by it, but there's something creepy. Of course, I wrote a novel called The Bootstrap Paradox, which you could check out on Amazon if you're interested in a good read. I think it's a good book, called The Bootstrap Paradox by my pen name Joe Orange. Orange is in the color, but that was about like workmen who find a mysterious hole in the wall of a house, and it's not there. It's not supposed to be there, and they climb through it and end up in this strange place. Kind of like Backrooms, my story is, except I think my story's better, but whatever. So Backrooms, it's interesting as in I like things that are highly strange. One of my favorite directors is David Lynch. So anytime we can get into a really strange place, I enjoy it. And I think the acting was great in this. Well, I shouldn't say great, but very good. Definitely competent. I think they did well. And also when they went through the wall and ended up into this strange world, which kind of looks like, endless versions of the furniture store that they actually worked in, I thought was done well, and I thought was very creepy. And that's all I really expect. You got to remember that I don't expect much, and I found it entertaining. I thought it was interesting. One thing that came to me, as you can see the shot here, is you've got this kind of weird thing where you've got like, it looks like AI, when the early AI generated stuff where you tell it to make, I don't know, a shopping center or something, and some of the shelves would be all over each other and the products wouldn't be. It kind of like is this amalgamation where you have like chairs in the ground, or these types of things happening. And what's interesting is that you do wonder if the whole situation of AI inspired some of the visual stylings, because it kind of really looks like that, right? It looks like this kind of, it is a disturbing thing. Anyway, I thought it was okay. I won't say it was amazing, but I thought it was all right. So anyway, let's keep on going here. I'm not going to talk about the story regarding Adamski now, because we're at 1 hour 17. I was just going to say, well, it started with Chris Bledsoe, as you can see here. Chris Bledsoe has said basically something was going to happen around April. He stuck a fork to the wall, and people saying that him doing that is like, this is what the comments were saying. Unless the context is something else where, I don't know, it's some kind of like, put a piece of blue tack on it and it was just some funny gag. People were saying that he psychically did this. He used his finger in order to stick the actual fork to the wall. So there's Bledsoe still going with this. That was prior to his failure for the aliens to show up, or whatever he was claiming. Here you have an older story. This is something I've seen posted on this channel, which I follow. And they were talking about this individual called Dolores Barros, I guess is the name. Here is the story. Dolores Barros was a woman who showed up at George Adamski's 1954 UFO conference right after he was talking about Venetians, as blonde Nordic-looking humans living among us. Why would they look the same as us if they're living on Venus? All the gas of Venus and stuff. Why would they look the same as us? And why would they live over there? This doesn't even make any sense. Why not just live in the ground in our planet? All your resources, air and everything, why go off to some kind of hostile planet where you can't breathe any of there's no oxygen, or the oxygen, I don't even know what the oxygen ratio is to poisonous gases, but so this is what they're claiming. Adamski is a famous, in my opinion, fraud. I do not believe these are the photographs of Adamski that he took, and these just look like hubcaps welded together to me and thrown up in the air. Nothing about this. It looks like, you know, some kind of strange advanced craft or anything. In fact, there's nothing about this that displays any of these kinds of characteristics. What I mean is you have the balloons that the Pentagon pointed out. Well, that new UFO video, there's nothing in that displays any kind of characteristics that are special. You're not seeing it jump from one side of the mountains to the other side at impossible speeds. The only thing you have in order to judge it is it looks like a bunch of like out of focus balloons. It's meaningless. It's like a lot of these kinds of things where they have a hubcap up in the sky or something which they photograph, and you say, what's that evidence of? Nothing. That's not evidence of anything at all. Evidence would be if you're filming it and it goes from one side of the sky to the other and displays characteristics that no craft can display. Anyway, Adamski put out a lot of these kinds of things. You know, these I don't believe any of them. I don't see any evidence why anybody would believe any of them at all. To me, as UFOs look like something made in a garage. Okay, and don't believe any of it. But at one of his things, there was this strange woman that showed up, and apparently he was furious because, you know, he thought that she came there in order to discredit him. This is the narrative. Don't know if it's true, but apparently people were taking photographs of her because she looked so strange. She looked like an alien, and here is what she looked like. Researchers now say she was a real person, but they managed to get some photographs of her, this apparent alien hybrid that showed up there, although a lot of people claim that she was actually a real person that worked in fashion. But she does look odd, I must admit. Her face is a bit odd with the proportion of her, well, her nose, but people look like that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all, but her facial features are a bit odd, and people are claiming that she was an alien. Here's something interesting. This is where someone fired themselves out the back of a truck on a chair at 80 miles an hour in order to test physics. What happened? 2, 1. So fired out. And then they're still on the road. Kind of crazy, actually. So you're ejected. The idea is that you're ejected out the back the same speed as the truck is going. So you end up motionless. I just thought it was interesting. Here's another crazy thing I seen, and this was this boat.
This is the only ship in the world that can deliberately sink itself. In just 20 minutes, it floods its ballast tanks and rotates 90 degrees upright like a massive floating buoy. Most of it stays deep underwater, so waves barely affect it, reducing motion to nearly 1/10 of a normal ship and creating one of the most stable platforms for deep-sea research. And inside, rooms are built in 2 directions, so when it flips, the walls literally become the floor. This is the...
So that ship is actually called the RP Flip. And it's decommissioned now, although a private company bought it again. It was something developed by the US Navy, an Office of Naval Research, in order to study the oceans and things like that. Back in the 1960s, it cost $600,000. So there shows you inflation. Quite incredible, really. And this ship, when it's flipped on its side, creates a full-on station that you can... And obviously, because it's so long, as they said in that video, it acts like a buoy on the ocean, right? It's like... It is quite stable in terms of being on the oceans. They can spend long periods of time actually, you know, doing whatever they want to do in the ocean, I guess. There's what it looks like. It has these massive tanks that go along there. I don't think that's a clear video, actually. Well, I don't have the clear one there. I just thought it was interesting, so I thought I'd throw it in. This is kind of weird. So why is it when you place a clam on the mouth of a large snail, does it react so strongly? These people were placing clams on a snail, and it was going like this. Look at it. Let me just increase the size of this a little bit here. So you put it on the snail, and it just goes crazy, instinctively wants to get away from it. I don't know how a snail would hurt a clam. By the way, after seeing this, like, I don't get why people like shellfish so much, but my mum used to love it. She said, go get lots of mussels and put them in a pot, and just crabs and stuff, and I'm just, to me, it's just, I don't know. But anyway, there is aren't they strange little creatures when that little thing comes out and they like use it to move around? Because of course you never see them do that, because whenever I see them, they're dead. I don't know, it's so alien. Well, a lot of the sea is alien, isn't it? So here is somebody posted this in terms of a laptop, and look at the amount of ports it has. Look at them. Mind you, this laptop has, there's 2 Ethernet cables. Wait, is that an Ethernet or is that? Oh no, that's a phone jack and an Ethernet cable. Okay. Got a PS2 cable. You've got all these PS2 plug. And I have an old laptop with Windows XP on it. I got it for a steal like about 10 years ago from someone online, and I can say, like, that has so many ports like this. This is what they used to do for the consumer, right? They used to give them options, right? Like different jacks, IEEE ports, of course. You've got 4 USBs here, and this is probably, I'd say, Windows XP. Is it? Windows 7, probably, actually. I was talking about eras, so about 2009. Wow, 2 CD burners. I mean, we're getting into royalty here. Those not royalty, what is it, like those upper class kind of things? I tell you what, those vents would get super hot on this. I don't know why I'm showing you this, but they used to have so many different ports, didn't they? Now it's just like, not all laptops, but now it's just like, what do they give you now? A couple USB ports and the CD player's gone, which isn't surprising because it's not that useful these days, although I have CD drives. What do they give you? A few USB ports? That it? I mean, they don't have card readers in them. They don't have SD card readers in them, a lot of laptops. That's fine. So what is that? It's I guess, you know, everything is USB these days, right? But apart from this is obviously a monitor cable. Well, whatever. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, I will see you later. Let's go for the outro, which of course is City of Angels by Reed Wonder. And I'll see you all later.